All right, thank you. So graphs are often used to illustrate changes or relationships in quantities. So applications could be in business sectors, showing investment fluctuations, cardiologists, di ba, to analyze heart irregularities. For us as engineers, your STEM, so engineers, physicists, and then scientists, it shows the relationships between variables, etc. So geometrically, the graph of the function of y f of x consists of all ordered pairs. This one, the slant graph here. It's or all ordered pairs, so it has infinite sets of x and y values. So if I ask you, just by looking at the graph, guys, what can you say is the domain of the graph? Again, um, domain is all the values of x, and then range is all the values of y. What's the domain of this one? All real numbers. Why all real numbers? Because when you look at the curve or the graph extends like this, right? It extends like that. So it extends left and right. Therefore, I can say x such that x is an element of all the real numbers, the set notation, or in interval notation form from negative infinity to positive infinity. Whereas for the range, let's look at the up and down motion. It extends upwards, it extends downwards. So y, such that y is an element of all the real numbers, or also in terms of interval notation, coming from below, negative infinity, going up. So positive infinity. Can you follow so far? Okay. Let's look at this. This is another type. As I have said, this is a radical function. When you look at the graph, does the graph extend to the left to, and to the right? Or does it start from somewhere, from some, some point? Di ba hindi? So, in this case, can you tell me, don't look at the writings in there because the writings already gave us the answer. But graphically, just by looking at the graph, where did it start? Di ba the graph starts from this point and then extends all the way to the right? That extends to the right. But it starts at that point. So I can safely say here that the domain for this one starts from 2 onwards and included yung value ng 2. It includes 2, right? Whereas for the range, where does it start? Do you have any graphs below or does it just starts on the x-axis, guys? Starts on the x-axis. Therefore, if it starts on the x-axis, I can say that it starts from y equals 0 and it goes up. So from 0 going up. But does it include 0? Yes. Therefore, from 0 to up, that's why your domain is in set notation, it's this one. In set notation, the range of the graph is this one. This is, again, a radical function. Next, rational function. In here, it just so happened that looking at the graph in here, the equation, the denominator cannot be -3 because -3, it's this one. X is -3 is a vertical asymptote. It just so happened, guys, that your graph also has another asymptote. This one, y equals 0, is your horizontal asymptote. Therefore, the asymptotes are there to restrict the graph. Therefore, the restrictions are y such that y cannot be 0, it cannot cross the asymptote. X such that x cannot be -3 because it can't cross that asymptote. Okay, so constant functions, this is a review. You don't need to copy because I'm writing anyway. I'm sorry. Hmm. If I were to draw this, let's just say this is the x and y axis. Y equals 3 would be somewhere here. I'll be asking you for domain and range. Let's draw first all of them, okay? Y equals 0.2. So let's just assume that 0.2 is somewhere here. -5, x equals 3. I'll just draw the axis. Okay. So what is my domain and range? What are my domains and ranges of each of them? What's my domain, guys? Can I safely say that this one extends to the left and right? It is from negative infinity to positive infinity, all real numbers. So um, I want it in interval notation form. What about the range, guys? It's simply 3. So wala na eh. Yun lang. What about here? Actually, naging interval, bigla siya naging set. Ano lang siya? 3. Wala nang iba. Here, solution set form. It's all real numbers. So x such that x is an element of all real. What about my y? Set form. Y such that y is 0.2. That's it. No problem. So here, what about this one? The one at the lower portion. Domain. All real, di ba? Ang dali na. Element of the real numbers. And then range is y is -5. So what about this one? Last one, x equals 3. Domain is x equals 3. And then here, all real. So sometimes I write it words or like this, sometimes in set notation, sometimes in interval notations, huh? So those are for constant functions. Very good. Now let's go to linear functions. Linear functions, here, I just have some reminders or notes. Domain and range, all real unless restricted. What do I mean by unless restricted? I'll show you in a while. Okay, maybe let's try to graph this. When x is 0, y is 1. When x is 1, y would be 3. So if I ask you to graph this, okay, it's simply a line. How did I get the points? Ganito. Some of you might ask. Take note, guys, you only need 2 points to determine a line. 0 and 1. If x is 0, 0 times 2 is 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 times 2 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So you have 2 points, 0, 1, and 1, 3. So I plotted those. Can you give me the domain? Oh, sige, later. Let's draw first. When x is 0, y is -1. When x is 1, y is 2. 0, it's -1. That point, if it's 1, that's positive 2. So let's draw. Next. Do I have any restrictions in here? Can I try 0, guys, or not? No, I cannot try 0, but I will try 0. Makulit ako eh. If x is 0, what's the value of y? Negative 1. When x is 1, what's the value of y? 1. Okay, no problem with that. Eh, ang sabihin nyo, ano ba yan si sir? Sinabi na nga, bawal yung 1. Bakit itatry pa niya yung 1? Ay, yung sa 0, bakit pa niya tinatry yung 0? Because of this. You understand what has happened? I tried it just to see what the restriction is. Can you follow what I did? Now, in here, it says they're greater than 2. So should I try 2 or no? Can 2 be a value? That's my first question. Can 2 be a value or no? No, you're correct. Very good. Should I try 2? Yes. Bakit? The reason why I would like to try 2 is so that I would know what the restriction is. So if I tried 2, sabi greater than 2, so let's try 3. 5 minus 2 times 2 is 1. 5 minus 3 times 2 is negative 1. Am I correct? So here, let's try. If it's 2, it's positive 1. If it's 3, it's negative 1. Sabi greater than 2. So what I would do is this. It says in the notes, domain and range are all real numbers unless restricted. In number 1, do you see any restrictions? There's none. Number 2, do you see any restrictions? There's none. Number 3, do you see any restrictions? Yes. So yun yung ibig sabihin. So that means we don't need to think. In number 1, it's all real, all are. Pero of course, don't be tamad, ha? I don't want to see this. I want to see you either in this form, interval notation, or in solution set form. Sige, para hindi kayo tamad, I will also not be tamad. Negative infinity to positive infinity. What about the range? Does it extend up and down? Yes. All real, all real. Kasi sabi nga dito, all real unless restricted. In here, it extends left and right. Therefore, like that. Up and down, yes, also. Now, my question is, in number 3, does the graph extend left and right? Yes, of course. But does it have any restrictions? Yes. What is my restriction? Can I safely say that this is my restriction? So it's x such that x is an element of any real numbers except x cannot be 0. In here, I can just say y cannot be what? Negative 1. So I can have this answer. Di ba sabi ko last time? Your answer, you can choose to have x such that x any real number, but x cannot be 0. Or you can simplify it as x cannot be 0. Pero if I want it to be in interval notation form, it's going to be negative infinity to 0, union 0 to positive infinity, negative infinity up to negative 1, union negative 1 to infinity. Di ba ganyan siya? Kasi it will be cut into 2. All right. In this case, let's look at this. What's the x? Does it start from anywhere? It starts from where? Is it 3? It starts from 2. But then the 2, is the 2 included or not? Not included. Therefore, from 2 to up to infinity, this one is parenthesis kasi it's not included. But if I place there, x is greater than or equal to 2, this would have been a bracket. Now, what's the range? Starting from where up to where? What's the least that I will start with negative infinity up until positive 1. Or you can write that as x such that x is greater than 2, y such that y is less than 1. Let's try another one. 5. Okay. Let's start with number 6 first because I think it's easier. It says here x is 1, 2, 3. So let's try. Some of you might ask, why is Sir trying 1, 2, and 3? It only needs 2 points to determine a line. I have a point to show you later on. So when x is 1, what's y equal to? 1 as well. When x is 2, y is 3. And then 5. Let's graph it. When x is 1, y is 1. When x is 2, y is 3. When x is 2, ay mali. Mali pala yung graph ko. 0 yung nag-graph ko. When x is 2, y is 3. And then when x is 3, y is 5. I have a question, guys. Should I connect the lines? Yes or no? Why should I not connect the lines? Because there is a reason why I should not. The values are limited only to exactly 1, exactly 2, and exactly 3. Therefore, if I ask you, what would be my domain? X such that x is exactly 1, 2, and 3. Y such that y is exactly 1, 3, and 5. Only that. Now, look at this. This one, let's try x and y. I'll start with 2, even if it says there greater than 2. Sige, I'll check. I'll make it greater than or equal. I'll change it a bit. And it says that it cannot be 3, but I will try 3. When x is 2, what's y equal to, guys? 7. Very good. And then when x is 3, it's 10. So let's try to draw that. X is 2, y is 7. 2, 5, 6, 7. X is 3, 8, 9, 10. So it says there, greater than or equal to 2, but not equal to 3. So again, it's not drawn to scale, huh? I want the I want what you will be giving me in terms of set notation. Go. Pa-interval notation na lang para mas madali. From 2 up to 3, but hindi pwedeng included. From 3 up to infinity. Take note, guys, even if it has an equal sign, infinity will always be an open interval. What about the range, Miss Oliva? It's from 7 up to 10, 10 up to infinity. Okay? Can you follow, guys, what happened? Kasi 7 is included. 10 is not included, pero everything going up is included. Okay? Sige, let's go to the absolute value functions. Let's go to the notes. Ito yung naisip kong rule. You have to remember that the terms inside absolute value, yung, we can call it argument as well. Okay. So what do I mean by this? I have a question for you guys. What variable is inside the absolute value? Is it X or Y? For all four questions I have. X. It says there the argument inside the absolute value, any real number. Since X is the argument in this, I can say that it's any real numbers. Am I correct? Now, else, if positive, guys, what's the symbol of this absolute value in front? Is that a positive absolute value of X? Yes. So dapat greater than or equal to. What's the number outside? Do I have any numbers outside? Do I have any numbers outside? None. Therefore, um, your range, kasi ito argument inside any real number. Since X siya, domain. Eh, ang number naman na ito sa Y, so Y for the range. Since this is positive, I can say the range is greater than 0. In here, it's negative. The range is less than 0. In here, positive. Range is greater than, the number outside is 0, so greater than 0. In here, oy, may 2, pero multiplier lang naman siya. It doesn't really matter. It's a positive 2. Greater than or equal to, oy, may minus 3. Greater than or equal to, minus 3. Pero in this case, I want you to give me also the vertex. What's the vertex? Di ba? Vertex is 0, 0. In this case, the vertex, sometimes it's called, in some books, it's called turning point for absolute functions. Here, when will the absolute value be equal to 0, guys? When x is negative 1. Therefore, the vertex is negative 1, 0. In here, again, when will the absolute value be 0? At negative 1, but it's no longer 0 because it has a number outside. Okay? Sometimes kasi, there are also other terms. Ito, I'm just giving this to you for extra information. We have what you call axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry in here is whatever is making the absolute value 0. X is 0. Here, AOS, X is negative 1. AOS, X is 0. AOS, X is negative 1. What do I mean by this? Okay, dito na tayo pupunta. X and Y to graph it. The vertex is 0. Let's think of a number to the left and to the right of it. That's equal in terms of distance. Negative 1 and 1. Okay. You know that when x is 0, your y is 0. When x is negative 1, let's apply the absolute value. What's the absolute value of negative 1? 1. Very good. Absolute value of 1? It's also 1. So when I graph it, it's simply like that. Here, x and y. Let's do the vertex, negative 1, 1. However, the absolute value of negative 1 is 1, pero there's a negative sign in front, meaning there's a negative 1 multiplier to it. So that's negative 1, 0, negative 1. Can you follow, guys? Are you able to follow? Okay. Now, in here, the vertex is negative 1. So let's use that negative 1. This is negative 2. This is 0. Negative 1 kasing center eh. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. The absolute value is 0. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. Absolute value would be 1. This is also 1. So when I look at it, it shifted to the left. Next, negative 1, negative 2, and 0. Negative 1, it becomes 0 minus 3, that's minus 3. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1 times 2 is 2, right? 2 minus 3 is negative 1. If it's 0, the whole thing becomes 0 plus 1 is 1 times 2 is 2 minus 3 is negative 1. Can you follow what I'm doing, guys? So far, alam ko it's fast, but then you have to remember you already took this up in junior high, how to graph. So I would expect that you already know how to graph. Okay. So in this case, yung shape niya all the time, parang letter V or inverted V. Now look at it. Am I correct in saying, guys, that the domain is all real numbers for all four examples? Am I correct in saying that? Yes. Because look at this, the argument inside. The variable inside, the absolute value is x. No matter if it's x plus 1, x minus 20, x minus 1 million, so that there is an x. It's x such that x is any real number. No problem. All of those. Okay. Else meaning you're done with the domain because x is the domain. Let's go for the range. Range. What's the symbol, guys? Is it positive or negative? Just by looking at the equation first. Positive. Therefore, if it's positive, greater than or equal to, what's the number outside, guys? 0. Ayun. And am I correct in saying, looking at the graph here, the yellow, it's from 0 upwards? Okay, in here, what's the range? Why such that y? Looking at the curve, don't look at the equation. Greater than, equal to 0. Very good. Looking at the curve, number 2, less than, equal to 0. Yes, that's very good. Because you can see the graph goes downwards. And when we apply the rules that I have stated on here, di ba may minus? So if it's minus, it's less than or equal. What's the number outside? There's nothing, so 0. In here, let's apply the rule that I wrote in orange. What's the symbol in front of the absolute? Positive. So am I correct in saying that it's greater than or equal? Okay. Now, what is the number outside? So, tama ba ako na yung graph ko mula negative 3 pataas? Yes, so that's it. So let's remember the rules, ha? I'll try giving you functions, but I won't ask you to solve to draw it. What I want you to give me is vertex, axis of symmetry, domain, range, tapos at saka ito rough graph. I won't ask you to start with X and Y na. Ito, based on the four that I'm asking, that's when you give me the domain range and the graph. So for number 1, guys, we can't solve it yet. It looks ugly. What I would do is this. Plus 1, and then there's minus 2. So am I correct? It becomes plus 3. Am I correct there? Okay. What is the vertex? Give me the vertex, guys. What will make the inside 0? It's 3. Okay. Any number outside. What's the number outside? 3. It's not 6, guys. Don't add it to this. What's inside belongs to the X. What's outside belongs to the Y. You understand? Okay. What's the axis of symmetry? X is 3. What is the letter inside? Is it X or Y? X. Therefore, the domain is an element of the real numbers. For Y, what is the symbol? Positive. Therefore, if it's positive, what can you say? Greater than or equal. Do I have any numbers outside? 3. Very good. So nasagot na natin even without graphing. Pero if I ask you, how do we graph it? Let's start with the vertex, 3, 3. Alam mo, it extends left and right. But sabi, y greater than 3. So it goes up. So it opens upwards. Yan lang siya, parang letter V. It's a rough graph. We did not plot any points. Okay. Now let's try this. This one is ugly. 3y, 3 minus x, this is minus 5. Some of you might ask, sir, is it possible to change the ano? Wag na, hayaan mo na lang siyang ganyan. Para hindi na magulo. But what I don't want is a negative in here. So what I would do is y negative 1/3, 3 minus x, and then this is plus 5/3. Can you follow, guys? Ay, ba't naging 3? 2 pala yun. Sorry, sorry, sorry. 2. 1/2. This is 5/2. Is it clear? Okay. So let's go for the vertex, the axis of symmetry, the domain, the range, and the graph. Give me the vertex, please. What will make the absolute value 0? 3. Very good. And then any numbers outside, 5/2. Any questions on this? Tama ba? Pare-pareho tayo? What is the axis of symmetry? Usually, the axis of symmetry, when you look at it, ayan, no? The axis of symmetry is where it cuts. Very good. Axis of symmetry is x equals 3. Binili ako ng parenthesis, mali. All right. What letter is in the absolute value? X or Y? So if it's X, should it be domain or range? Domain. Therefore, the domain, X is any real number. What about my range? Look at the symbol. It's negative. Therefore, less than or equal to what? To 5/2. So ito, for the graph, we will start with the vertex. 3, 5/2 is 2.5 from here. Pero sabi negative, so it goes down. Di ganyan siya. Can you follow? Okay. Let's go to radicals. Ganito yung itsura ha. Sorry if I keep on coughing. If, for example, you have this form, if even index, dapat the radicand should always be greater than 0. And then here, if A is plus, minus, greater than or equal, less than or equal to K, which is the number outside, din lang naman siya. Pero if radicand is odd indexed, all real numbers unless restricted. Okay? So let's give an example. Okay. So for the first one, meron din tayong vertex kasi 'di ba that's the um origin point niya. So what will make the radicand 0, guys? In this case, 0. What is the number outside? There's nothing. So 0, 0. In here, what will make the radicand 0? 2. What is the number outside? 0. Very good. So it's what I'm asking you basically is HK. Here, H is 0, K is negative 2. Okay. So if I ask you to draw, sige if I ask you to draw, what you do usually is this. Mm, ang sinasabi dito kasi, inside, there is already a rule that the radicand should be greater than 0 if the index is even. So the radicand greater than or equal to 0 kasi even index. Therefore, what I would do is I would try x and y values that are greater than or equal to 0. Wag na 1, 2, 2, 4 na lang. Ay, 2, 4. 0, 1, at saka 4. So the square root of 0 is 0. The square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 4 is 2. No problem with that. So if we were to graph it, 0, 0, 1, 1, 4 yung x, y ko is 2. So look, guys, what letter is inside the house or inside the radical, x or y? X. And then, yung x ko ba, is it a positive x or a negative x? So that means it's housing the positive x-axis. It goes to cover the positive x-axis. Do you understand? If I ask you, by looking at the graph and looking at my rules, what is the domain? X is greater than or equal to 0. Actually, it's here, oh, nasa taas. What about my range? Looking at the graph, just by looking at the graph muna, you should, yeah, yes, from 0 up to infinity. Pero, looking at the rules I have on top, is the A that I have a positive A? Kasi di ba, my A is 1. Is A positive? Yes. Therefore, greater or equal to, what's the number outside? Do I have any numbers, guys? Wala. Meaning, 0. So, tama, oh, yun siya. Eto, guys, um, let's look at the radicand. It says in the rules that the radicand, if it's even index, should be greater than or equal to 0. The radicand is x minus 2, greater than or equal to 0. So that means x is greater or equal to 2. That is already your domain. Okay, what about my range? Looking at the rules, what about my range? Can you tell me? Greater than or equal to k. Your k is 0. Ayan siya. Pero if you want proof of it, let's try graphing. Greater than or equal to 2. So 2, 3, and 6. If x is equal to 2, y equals 0. If x equals 3, 3 minus 2 is 1. It's 1. If it's 6 minus 2 is 4, it's 2. So that means your graph has shifted. If it's 2, 0. If it's 3, it's 1. If it's 6, it's 2. The graph looks like this. Pero, guys, nag-shift lang naman siya. It still opens to positive x. So, it opens to the positive x-axis. It covers the positive x-axis. Let's look at the bottom. Without solving, just by looking at the rules, guys, what's my domain? My domain is greater or equal to 0 to less or equal to negative 2. Bakit? Kasi ganito, the radicand is just x. Radicand is just x. And then looking at the numbers, may negative. So all the time, whatever the radicand is, it becomes minus. So let's try plotting 0, 1. No one's stopping us. Let's just use 4. So square root of 0 is 0, minus 2 is negative 2. 1, square root of 1 is 1, pero may negative. So negative 1 minus 2 is minus 3. 4, it becomes 2 times negative. So it's negative 2 minus 2 is minus 4. Therefore, for this case, starts with negative 2. If it's 1, it's negative 3. If it's 4, it's negative 4. Yun lang siya. It starts from here. Okay. Debate's going down. Pero a lot of you are asking, Sir, bakit laging x is greater than 0? So laging nasa positive x. Okay, di ba balik na rin natin without solving. What I mean is without plotting pala. Let's just solve. What's the vertex, guys? 2, 3. Very good. Okay. Now, I would like you to give me the domain and the range, and then tsaka natin igagraph. Pero, to solve for the domain, what's the restriction what's the rule? If the radicand is even, the radicand should be greater than, if the index is even, the radicand should be greater than or equal to 0. So, the radicand is 2 minus x should be greater than or equal to 0. Negative x greater than or equal to negative 2. But we don't accept that. X is less than or equal to 2. All right. So x, such that x is less than or equal to 2. We're finished with that. Now, for the range, let's just look at the signs. What's the symbol? So, greater than or equal kasi positive. Greater than or equal to what? To the number outside, the k. Kasi vertex niya, 2, 3. Siya yung nakikita nyo dito. Okay. So, let's look at this, guys. What's the direction of x? To the left or to the right? To the left. What's the direction of y? Up or down? Up. So, left and up, ang itsura ng curve natin, rough curve would be, saan siya naka-open? Di ba may minus x, negative yung x? Papunta sa negative side ng x. You understand? Okay. So, x is equal to square root of y minus 5. Vertex, domain, range. Vertex, negative 5, 0. Kasi sabi niyo, sir, ba't ganun? Ba't hindi 0, negative 5? Take note, y na yung nasa loob. Hindi na siya x. Kasi what I want, guys, for you to remember is, dapat no matter how I try to confuse you, alam nyo yung rules. Alam nyo what you're doing. You understand me? So since y is inside, let's look at the range. The radicand has to be greater than or equal to 0. Siya yung radicand. Therefore, siya yung range ko. What about my domain, guys? Go. Domain is greater or equal to negative 5. Very good. Okay, without actually plotting points, what is the direction of x? To the right or to the left? To the right. What's the direction of y? Up or down? Up. Okay. So, up and right. What is inside the house? X or Y? Y. So didikit siya, it will try to approach the Y. Hindi siya papunta sa X ngayon kasi Y yung nasa house. Eh di ba this is the Y axis? You understand?